as you heard, I'm a lawyer from the United States. Now, in spite of that, or perhaps because of it, I've been asked to help moderate this session and some others. As my background, as was described, is as a regulatory lawyer, both working for private companies as well as for the government, and involved in litigation involving environmental and product safety issues. My experience has been in helping companies design compliance and risk management systems and dealing with problems when it doesn't work out the way it's all planned. My law firm's office is in Washington, but just to give you a bit of sense of my background, I live most of the time on a small farm in Kentucky where we have a few horses. That's not unusual. It's a rule. Everybody in Kentucky has to have horses, unless you play basketball. Those are the two options. I'm not good enough at basketball, so I have horses. This conference is very unusual, and it's unique. I've had a very interesting time and enjoyable time in my brief time in Abu Dhabi, working with some wonderful people at the QCC. They really want to know what you think. I've been in a lot of conferences with a lot of government people, and the government people tend to sit in dark suits in the corner, and they ask for your input, but they don't really want it that much. These guys really do. And as a symbol of that is one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm coming to ask questions. I'm not coming to help to provide answers. No one really has all the answers. But we have a lot of experience in this room from people who come from different perspectives that can help us proceed in the very challenging ways that Sean has described. So my job here, and the job of the moderators in the various sessions, is to help keep the discussion going, to provide questions to help elaborate on some of the issues that we've raised, and to keep us somewhat on point. And from my experience, that's going to be a struggle, but it will be an enjoyable journey when we get to wherever it is that we're going to be. Now, Sean has described the relationship between quality standards and economic development. This first session is a question of how do we take that vision and put it into reality. The whole point of this meeting is to take those very broad concepts and very broad ideals and necessary themes and make it real, make it really happen. And we're going to learn from some people who have done that and who have seen it. And we're going to try and translate it into very specific things that can be done. Because that's the only way this can work. The only way this can work is if you participate and you engage in the workshops and in the brainstorming sessions and say, wait a minute, I don't agree with that. Or this is a good thing, you should do more of that. Or you should do something else. Because that's the way this works. If this is a series of talking head presentations, we're not going to get anywhere. Now, the first session is going to be, because it's very hard to have a discussion in this kind of a room. We are going to hear brief presentations from some very successful and people in industries, both in Abu Dhabi and outside, who can help give us some guidance on how they've navigated this transition from broad themes to hard realities. So the questions that we're going to be considering is how do all the big themes of making high quality and excellence in products and in processes, how does it work for you? How does it work for your business? What challenges have you had in reaching that level, the level where you are now and the level where you need to be? There is nothing more complicated than the nuclear industry. There's nothing more difficult than developing a new industrial zone that is suitable to attract high-tech industries. Yet you have done that. and we're going to hear from the leaders of those industries. We're also going to hear from outside experts who have seen this kind of development globally. Now, I guess what would be next is if the members of this panel would come up and take their seats. I'm going to do my very best to introduce and refer to people by the names as they are supposed to be pronounced. I apologize in advance for when I don't do that. As I've described, I'm not sure that I speak English. I speak American, and that's not necessarily the same thing. Mr. Al-Hamadri, CEO of ENEC, has experienced an amazing transformation in developing nuclear power plants. This is something that around the world, I'm not sure of any nuclear plants that I'm aware of that are in the process of development. It's been an industry that's been somewhat paralyzed, and I'd be very curious to hear from you. How have the development of quality standards, how does that transfer in your experience, and how can that leverage Abu Dhabi's economy into a high-growth economy that, as we've heard, it needs to be?
Good morning, Your Excellency. Your Excellencies, I'm very pleased here and honored to be here and to be speaking to this important subject that I've been throughout my career. You know, it's been in my competency development personally, and in my career I've been very, very close to it. First of all, if you allow me, I would like to just give a brief word and define what does quality mean. Equality, the basics of it, it's fit for purpose or fit for use. So everybody wears a watch, and I believe everybody have one. But when it comes to being on time or being on schedule, it really varies from people who are, you know, come from different cultures, different backgrounds. You could buy a watch for $2, you could buy a watch for maybe $100,000. But at the end of it, it's a measurement tool. And is it fit for purpose? That's the key question when it comes to quality and quality management. Now, I would like to give you how we utilize the quality management systems in developing our civilian nuclear program here in UAE. And I would like also to link it to the 2030 of the development of Abu Dhabi. The program was started in the UAE around 2008, and that development of the program, or the development of the company, was started on clear foundation and a very robust foundation when it comes to quality management. We did build the integrated management system that integrates all our systems, processes, and procedures in a very comprehensive manner. And that system, or that bricks been building on top of that foundation, was the quality assurance and quality surveillance. That's where developed a very detailed assessments. We have around 25 formal audits when it comes to our quality assurance, and we have hundreds of quality surveillances, which is, you know, continuous basis on our equipment, on our management, and our processes. So when it comes to the high standards of safety, high standards of security, that can be only implemented with a very integrated management, quality management systems. And that's what we've been building in the last couple of years. And we will continue to build that and make it more robust and engraved in everybody working on this project. And if you allow me in a few more minutes, the quality management systems within the Emirate Nuclear Energy Corporation, it's been developing and evolving for the last couple of years. And I would like to go back to the watch example. I mean, a lot of people wear watches, but when it comes to demonstrating that being on time, it takes behavior, it takes attitude, and that's built culture. So that culture of high standards of quality and safety and security, we've been developing, and we are maturing it. And so far, we did reach a very high standard when it comes to the international benchmarks. We've achieved around 10 certifications on the ISOs and other certifications, and that is a high commitment. And what I mean by high commitment means we did abide by high standards. To go back to the example of the watch, we have to be there, in that millisecond, by the second. We have to do that every time we do a job. We have to meet that standards over and over and over. So when you commit to 10 standards, or in our case, around the 300 procedures, you have to, every time, do it, repeat the same success over and over and over. Repeating the same success over and over and over. In a tool that's fit for purpose, that's where you achieve excellence, and that's where you really be in the journey of excellence that has, I would say, the sky is the limit when it comes to continuous improvement. Thanks.
You've had some great success in I think you have two local suppliers that you've developed and they have become certified. Could you describe a little bit what were your biggest challenges in getting those local suppliers to become qualified to supply your industry?
Actually, we've been working with a lot of companies to qualify them and bring them to nuclear standards and quality grade. And successfully, we have Emirate Steel and DOCAP have been really, did demonstrate a very high quality standards that they already had. But they need to step up one level of quality standards, quality management standards, that took them almost a year of development and testing and process, and even re-evaluating some of their processes to have them to the quality standards of nuclear industry. Meeting the NQA1, which is an American standard and just comes from the ASME standard, with a very rigorous process control when it comes to the quality management system, when it comes to the QS, and they've been very successful working with us in achieving such kind of certification.
Those two companies, I think, DOCAP is electrical cables, and Emirate Steel, of course, is rebar. I mean, these are basically basic products that are not inherently unique to development and application in other areas of development. Has the increase in qualification that they've achieved for your purpose enabled them to broaden their markets outside to other customers?
I cannot talk on their behalf, but what I could tell you from our side, engaging with them, it's an investment for us. I see it having qualified suppliers when it comes to cables, rebars, and we have also a couple of cement factories which are underway also of development of certification. That raises the bar for the infrastructure. So if you have a workforce and a system that in private sector that cater for such kind of high standards, that's propagated in other industries. It really gets in the other companies. Those people can also be moving around in the other sectors. They keep raising the bar, and that again, to the example of the watch, that culture, that attitude, that behavior, it's very it affects everybody around them. So to your point, we've seen good improvement in their processes. We've seen those companies did step up to these challenges. And these challenges or these rigorous procedures and rigorous systems needs a very high commitment. And I'm really thankful to their leadership and the companies who are also involved working with us, the private sector, that at leadership level, at working level, they are very, very committed in creating that attitude and behavior and discipline that will make a culture of quality management and quality surveillance in their companies and so also in the private sector.
Let me ask one question, because I don't get very often a chance to talk to a CEO of a nuclear company. And it's something that I noticed is a topic that has been around for a while. Fukushima. From that disaster at that facility, what does the industry learn from that? Is there something? Is there a quality dimension to that particular issue?
First of all, the Fukushima natural disaster was, a very, very big disaster that, thousands of people who lost their life through the tsunami and the earthquake, and it's been very, very tragic. To go back, to the main point of nuclear industry, there is always lessons learned. And the nuclear industry, it's built in a way that cater for continuous improvement, continuous development. And that's the whole gist of the quality management system of the nuclear industry. Has very, very high standard, of quality, very high standard of, safety and security. And that's how the nuclear industry have evolved and built. And to shed some light on the Fukushima event, the Fukushima power plant was built and commissioned in the early 70s, around 71. And 2011 was the last year of service, by the way. So over 40 years was the last year of service, and that power plant did work 100% as per the systems that it was designed for. And to go again to the main subject of quality management systems, it is fit for purpose. So to shed some light on our power plants are designed for very high standards when it comes to seismic activity, and also we've done a very comprehensive study in 2007 and 8 on deciding on the best location for the power plant, which is in Baraka. We've did a lot of detailed studies when it comes to the environmental requirement in the UAE, when it comes to temperature, dust and heat and so on. So all these parameters when it comes to nuclear industry, you do design before you build. And you even simulate and you test even before you build. And that's when nuclear standards, where you do build your facilities to very high standards, and you do the simulation and testing and inspection before building them. So having a regulator, also across the UAE, which is our regulator, the Federal Authority for Nuclear Regulation, is licensing the power plant, that it went through a very iterative process of licensing and certification process that took us almost 2 years of reviewing a document that is 9,000 pages. I would call it a quality manual documenting how we will be building these power plants and how they'll be constructed and how they'll be inspected and how many people will be inspecting them and what's our quality assurance and how our quality surveillance will be conducted. All of that in that 9,000 pages of which is called the construction license document, which is we have it approved and we are going and using it as going by the book. So that's how nuclear industry thrives for excellence, at the same time meeting high standards of quality assurance and quality surveillance.
Excellent. Unfortunately, Mohammed, you're going to have to leave at noon. So if he gets up and leaves, it may be because he doesn't like what's being said, but it probably isn't. Next, thank you very much. It's a fascinating, very challenging area that you're in. Dr. Wolfhard Hauser from Intertek, CEO of Intertek, a leading global laboratory company, private company that does a lot of work for testing for private companies. I'm very familiar with their work in the U.S. Dr. Hauser, you see a lot of companies. You've seen a lot of companies in your business. Do you see a theme that relates to quality for the successful companies? And please feel free to say whatever you're going to say.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think if you talk about quality, then it's a very, very wide range. And as a lot of the speakers already have mentioned, you have to look into qualities in related to products, in related to processes, and in related also to the assets. But let's be a little bit more specific and let's define the different patterns of quality. I think a lot of that, what we're talking about, first of all, is related to safety. Safety aspects always have been very important, and they're also still very important in the future. And as an organization, as we are coming originally more from the testing side, and today more saying we want to support our customers in relation to the quality of their products. When we started many, many years ago, Thomas Edison has been the one who founded our company in the 19th century, by the way. When we're coming from the safety aspect, our philosophy is, let's leave aside all the standards and all that. And I think this is very important. If you do that, if you think about that, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And you have to take that philosophy to really find out whether a product, a technology is safe, and can fulfill all those features. In the past, you only looked at the specific products and the direct risks. For example, an electrotechnical product was the shock, that you don't get an electrical shock from an electrotechnical product. In the US, it started more from the side of fire safety, for example, because they have a different voltage system, for example. So that have been the basics, what people understood a long time as quality. But then it moved on. And today, quality, you can see, is a lot wider. And let's have a look where quality comes from, where it is important. I think the most important is innovation. All new technologies developed by industries, and we're covering all industries from the textile sector, the toy sector, electrical, medical products, up to the oil or pharmaceutical industry. It's all about when new technologies are coming out, the industry, not the governments, not we as organizations, the industry itself is developing standards. If you get a new 4G phone, then these phones, they have to communicate with the networks, and the industry is developing those standards. And to help them to achieve that, you have to be capable to be on top of those technologies and helping them to provide a service to help them to make sure that the products really work in that respect. Because they are usually focusing on features, but the quality aspect that you can communicate in all networks with all different types of phones, these industry standards, they need also a service who is testing and checking that. Take the new LED technology, for example, going into medical devices, going into aerospace, going into many other areas in cars, automotives, all new standards which are being developed in those areas. They're coming from the industry, and later on, if it's safety related, that might also become governmental standards. So technology is driving the aspects of quality in all industries. The second part, and that is what you described as fit for purpose, but I want to widen that out. It's in a way how the consumers, the end users, are driving quality. And that has changed dramatically over the last 10, 20 years. It has been safety 20 years ago in the Western economies. Today it's a lot more. It's about, if you talk about an electrotechnical product, it's about chemicals, chemical hazards which could be in a product. Nobody was talking about that 20 years ago. And it goes further on, the more complex the products get, you build in microprocessors. It's all about electromagnetic compatibility, that a product, your vacuum cleaner, for example, if you have a pacemaker, is not killing you when you switch it on, or if your pacemaker is not driving the vacuum cleaner crazy, the other way around. And that has increased the complexity, what we understand in relation to quality aspects. And that goes on even a lot further what quality means. The consumer wants to know today, the end user, what has happened during the production. What is about corporate social responsibility? Has the product been produced in a way that the environment has not been damaged a lot? Has child work being involved? Or look at the situation, you all read about Bangladesh, what happened there when factories are crashing down, killing more than 300 people, or fires are coming out of those areas. That is all what end users today understand what quality is. And the issue which comes on top of that is it's no longer your own production, your own design you make. Today, if you have a production, if you design a device and an asset, you have a long supply chain. And people nowadays, they understand maybe the first tier of the supply chain, but they're often totally unaware what is happening in the second, third, fourth tier of the supply chain. So quality becomes also a management of the supply chain, and that has increased the complexity in quality in addition to that. And last but not least, we have government regulations more and more stepping in from what, the consumers, the end users want. The government has to protect them. The government has to show them that they can deliver a quality in their home market. And if you can deliver a good quality and show your people in your home market that you can deliver that quality, be it your own industry, be it by imports into your country, then you also will be capable to build something up which understands what quality might be meant in other countries. And here at the end to quality, we have an understanding. One always thinks in the Western economy, what is quality? That is not so simple. Even in Europe, between the countries, the understanding what quality is quite different. Or between Europe and the US. The Americans like genetically modified food. The Germans hate it. You know, just to give you an example in that respect. And that you see in many areas. And what is coming up and what is for your growth of your economy is important. We will see 1 billion new consumers in the growing middle class, in the growth economies, especially in Asia. And that will be a huge export market. But those consumers might have a different understanding of what quality is than we have in the Western world. They might have a different understanding what quality means than what you have here. And I think it is important, the flexibility of understanding of quality to be successful in an economy. So fit for purpose is right, but fit for purpose in relation to the end users. And they can be quite different.
Do you see, granted, obviously there are different, every company operates in its markets with its customers and has to be sensitive to those customers. Do you see, though, any consistent themes among companies that you've seen as high-quality companies?
I would say what is important that companies more and more, the larger companies, the manufacturers, but also the retailers, they're creating brand names. And with a brand name, they create an image of quality. And that can be and has to be different. You have very expensive products. Let's take textiles. If you buy a cheap T-shirt, then you expect as a consumer a different quality than if you buy Burberry or Hermes. So those companies have different brand names and they have different standards they put on their products. So let's start, for example, shrinkage. Whether you wash your shirt 10 times and it then shrinks, or whether you do it 30 times, there is no standard how it has to be. It's just where you want to be as a company. And what has shifted and where the government is now coming in textiles, let me take that example, it has been that physical testing where it's just about quality, what you want at end users. But what is happening, that meanwhile you know that all the azodyes, the chemicals which are in textiles, that they can be toxic, they can be allergenic, they can be cancerogenic, and meanwhile a lot of governments are then saying at the end, we have to check that. We have to protect our people in relation to that. And so what I'm just saying, quality is not something which is static. Quality is constantly developing with the developing of technologies. And the most important aspect too is that to be flexible, to look what is going on in technology developments in industries, and to listen to all the different customers around the world if you want to build an export industry. And as you know, there are historically quality marks out there. Maybe we come back to that later. You have in Germany the GS mark, which is a governmental mark, which shows more than the product just, complies to the lowest quality level. There are very high quality level marks in that way in the US, the UL mark, our ETL mark, for example. And I think what would be interesting maybe at the end, if I see here the Abu Dhabi quality mark, I would say, and it looks really great with a tick, like the British BSI mark also, if you could establish that in your world, in the Arabic world, as the quality and safety mark, I think then you would have achieved a lot. And that can be in some areas mandatory, like in medical devices. In others, like the German GS mark, it can be something which is voluntarily. So I think that would be a great start, and it would be good during that symposium if you think about of how you can develop that further.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that, and we didn't set up that comment, by the way. That came on his own. Khaled Al-Khouari, you're running a very imaginative and challenging business where you try and attract, you provide the capability for investment. How do you do that? How do quality standards play into that business vision?
Well, thank you. First, I think a lot of us probably have the conviction that innovative quality standards are one of the great enablers for companies to be able to transform themselves through the journey to become world-class. And with that, looking at the infrastructure business in the terms of industrial development, as well as logistics in the sense of Kizad and Khalifa Port, we believe that providing the infrastructure, and if I put it in the, let's say, the computer sense, the hardware, and supplementing that with the software, which is basically the services that enable investors in the industrial world to be able to come and use that model as, let's say, going further in the PC world as a plug-and-play concept, allows them the usability and finding that environment that takes them to the next stage. So when we look at, for example, Kizad and Khalifa Port, setting up the standards of what it is that infrastructure that is required for industries has been one of our biggest challenges. And in doing that, we looked at all the different ports in terms of Khalifa Port and what operating systems, at the same time, at what makes an industrial zone an interesting and a competitive industrial zone. And obviously, the quality of infrastructure and the connectivity to the markets has been one of the main success factors. So if you look at, for example, in Khalifa Zone or Kizad, we have built all the different types of utilities that would be required from power, high voltage, medium and low voltage, seawater cooling, processed water, potable water, gas network, and so on and so forth, which allow the investor to feel comfortable that this infrastructure will be able to provide for where I need to go with my organization. Similarly, on the Khalifa Port, in embracing new technology in the region and being the first in the Middle East to have a fully automated container yard where there is no drivers actually moving containers, actually working through automation, has been one of the major challenges and has been one of the key differentiators. And providing such services, we believe, to our investors, allow them to be able to take the benefits of such services and take them and improve on where they can go with their products. So working with every investor, definitely looking at his business plans, looking at his needs and where he aims to go, and keeping that in mind of the aspiration of the Abu Dhabi 2030 in terms of what industries do we want, where is the human capital going, and so on and so forth, has actually shown us that quality companies always see this value proposition as something that they should really consider. And because of that, we've seen that the quality type companies have come. And I think if I take, some examples on the aluminum sector, yes. Obviously Emal is our anchor tenant that is working within that area. And then there has been, because of the quality of Emal, has been a number of organizations that came as a part of the vertically integrated clustering approach in allowing these industries to thrive.
One of the things that I remember that Sean mentioned, a very critical element of what quality is and we're talking about, the standards we're talking about, are not only standards of the products that are used and the raw materials and the actual construction, but the quality of the workforce and the specialists. How much you've had, obviously, you're involved in a massive construction project. Have you had to retrain and to recreate appropriate standards for the skilled trades that have been critical to your success?
Obviously, during the construction period, this has been, a $7.2 billion investment. So it's sizable enough. We've been able to attract the world-leading companies in these industries, not only from the consulting in terms of design, but even during the construction periods, which is probably going to be similar to major mega projects. And in that, we see that these companies adhere to the top level standards of quality. And given the labor, which is one of the key fundamentals that was explained in previous presentation by Sean, the labor force and the labor laws allow major flexibility in attracting and retaining top talent to be able to ensure that you deliver your efficiencies and deliver the project to the standards that you're looking for. And in doing that, we've had companies from all over the world. Obviously, locally, we've had some mega construction companies like Al Jaber, Gantut, and others. We've had others from Germany like Zublin, and we've had Boskalis, Arkiroden, and these are some of the Hyundai as well from South Korea. So you see that you are able to bring the top of the quality and experience in the world by attracting them and making them work within a homogeneous environment to deliver a project and an objective.
And how do you translate that level of quality from the outside firms that have obviously achieved that? Otherwise, you wouldn't have hired them. How do you then translate that to develop that same level of quality assumption and standards and expectation with local companies and local workforce?
I think you are touching on a very important point, and I think people in industry in general, and I would just take it from the angle of industrial development, have always faced, as you start, and I think it has been alluded to earlier on, when you look at industries, you find very often the fact that industries themselves end up generating the quality standards. I know of certain companies and a number of companies who have their own labs. Their certification to their clients is what the basis of the deal is. And that goes from polymers to others as well, and steel and so on and so forth. And I think that is going to become the wave going forward, because obviously they are at the forefront of dealing with their customers and the innovation in that field. And I think that having such council in Abu Dhabi will definitely give support, because companies, even though they are the leaders in this area, would have probably some impediments in the sense of going through the governmental approvals. And let's take an example, for example, the GCC customs treaty. And being able to export products from UAE, for example, to any of the GCC countries, you would need to meet certain quality standards. And those need to be somewhat endorsed by a government body rather than a commercial body. And that has been one of the key challenges for some of our industries, where they face trouble in getting these approvals. So I think having such setup will allow transparency, as well as smoothness in the operation of these industries.
Next, I'd like to hear from Lord Jamie Lindsay. Lord Lindsay is chairman of UCAS, which is the company in the UK that provides the accreditation for laboratories. And I'd like to let you to explain a little bit more about what you do and what your company does, and how that translates back down into the quality of the companies that are tested and certified.
Yes, thank you, Lee. Yes, I'm chairman of the United Kingdom's national accreditation body, United Kingdom Accreditation Services, or UCAS. And I brought to this role, I think, the experience of having been a government minister some 15 years ago, at a time when there were a number of dramas and crises that affected people's perception of public safety. And you may remember that there was a BSE crisis in terms of our food chain, and we had some environmental crises. And I left government very conscious that legislation and regulation by themselves do not necessarily protect society. And even where they might be argued to do so, as it were, the public perception is that without good practice and without best practice, companies who are simply abiding by safety requirements are not doing enough for society. So I came away from government understanding the role of standards, of quality standards, and specifically of accreditation that, as it were, provides the wider public with the confidence that people who adopt standards really are meeting those standards. And I've spent probably the last 10 years now encouraging government to pay greater attention to the role of quality standards, to pay greater attention to the underpinning role of accreditation that demonstrates people are meeting those standards. And it has been a very successful 10 years. We now are at a stage where the British government, the United Kingdom government, is not just, as it were, promoting the use of voluntary standards in society to ensure that quality is being delivered. They're actually beginning to replace legislation or, as it were, refrain from legislating and regulating because of the role that accredited standards can deliver. And we have some very good examples now in a wide number of fields where government has stepped back from, as it were, a statutory intervention in order to allow accredited standards to deliver the outcomes that society wants. And I'm not just talking about, as it were, soft areas. If you look at critical safety areas, such as the safety of food, the safety of water, the quality of the judicial system in terms of the DNA or forensic evidence that's going into the courts, in terms of the healthcare and social care areas, and the quality of the laboratories which are underpinning, shall we say, pathology, physiological diagnostics, imaging, and so forth. These are all areas which have got to be accurate in their activities. There is a, as it were, a safety or life threatening dimension if they underperform. You would have thought that the government would want to ensure through frontline statutory oversight that those standards were being met. These are all areas now where the United Kingdom government is relying on quality standards underpinned by accreditation to ensure that people are meeting those standards. So that's an example, I think, of just how sophisticated and developed the system of accredited quality standards has become in the United Kingdom. The government, of course, has become more and more enthusiastic, not just because they understand better how standards can deliver outcomes that are wanted, but by replacing regulation and legislation, it's actually making government more efficient. It's helping government remove some of the regulatory burden on business and is therefore freeing up business to allow economic opportunities which might not otherwise exist. And it's also allowing government simply to shrink in size as third-party organisations accredited by UCAS deliver what might otherwise have been delivered by a regulator. And I'll just give you one small case study in the, should we say, in the gas safety field. Over the years, we've had some appalling incidents in the United Kingdom, where the faulty installation of gas appliances has killed a good number of people. Now, you would have thought that was a classic case for the government to take, as it were, frontline control on behalf of society. The government did not. The government required a standard to be brought forward with the industry. It asked the national accreditation body to provide the personnel certification. And the government, in a sense, stayed back from the issue. We delivered the quality standards, and society, the outcomes actually are probably better than would have been the case had the government created an inspectorate. So that gives you a feel for how quality standards underpinned by accreditation can actually replace what would otherwise be government activity, and to do it with the ownership of the industry, the flexibility of a standard rather than legislation, and the sort of breadth of commitment that standards inspire. The last thing, if I can, I'll just say that there's been a recent study in the United Kingdom to try and assess the economic benefits of relying on accreditation rather than legislation and statutory regulation. And if you just look at the price premium, which is the price people are prepared to pay for an accredited product or an accredited service or accredited equipment, that is in excess of £600 million. If you then add the way accreditation underpins national measurement systems, national metrology, and the contribution that accreditation and standards make to international trade, you're coming up to about £1 billion. If you then factor in the health and safety benefits and the other societal and public benefits of quality standards across public services and private sector activities, then you're into billions. So this is, underpinning with accreditation good quality standards is a way of optimizing government and optimizing the economy.
Jamie's going to be involved in the session on best practices for industry later, and this is a great, hold that. Yeah. We'll be talking more about that. I'm told we need to close shortly, but Anas, I'm wondering if there are any themes that you've heard that
usually
resonate.
It's more difficult to be the last to speak, I think, not today. I think what the esteemed panel has been talking about in terms of what is quality and what does it mean from a consumer perspective, from a cultural expectation. The UAE has, I think, don't quote me on the number, but more than 100 nationalities living in the UAE. Each individual, 200, got the confirmation. Each consumer brings certain expectations due to education, family background, social values. As government entities, we're trying to accommodate and set the level to where our expectation as UAE in terms of quality is. Now, our ambition is global. We are developing industries. We are investing in power generation initiatives to supply future requirements of energy to create more prosperity and safety. So if quality is safety, if quality is best practice, if quality is evolution, is a journey, if quality is standards, voluntary standards, as we heard, it takes more than just one entity or one sector to actually embark on a conscious journey of quality. As QCC, we are committed to developing the quality infrastructure quality infrastructure. We are developing testing capability that seeks to be accredited to the highest levels required. We are investing in a calibration capability for the Emirate to enable our economy, and we just heard from Lord Lindsay what is the impact quantified in the recent case study in the UK. We have heard from Khalid about how open the economy in Abu Dhabi is. We are partnering with global players, with people who bring the most advanced systems. We need to be compatible with our partners in terms of quality. Not only this, we want to enhance the competitiveness of the Emirate. So QCC, through the forum today, through the panels and the workshops, we seek to gain a better understanding. We welcome questions offline. Our offices are open. And I'd like to just thank all of us for the due attention. I can't see properly because the lights are, but it's a serious agenda for Abu Dhabi, and the commitment is there, Lee. I have nothing more to add.
That's fine. I think we're going to have a break at this point, and then we'll come back with another plenary session and another workshop. Thank you very much.